It's time for Getty to put his voice aside. We're going to talk about Rush's instrumentals. One of the things that Rush is known most for is their musicianship, and it encompasses each of the members' virtuosity in their respective instruments. And not only that, but Geddy Lee's unique voice and how it has changed over the years. But even towards the end of Rush's career, Geddy, even though he struggled, was still able to sing pretty much all of the high notes that he sang when he was younger. Now, throughout the years also, Rush has produced several instrumental pieces where there's no singing at all. So today we're going to talk about those instrumental songs. Now, what qualifies as a Rush instrumental? Well, songs where Geddy Lee doesn't sing. Now, there are songs in Rush's repertoire where there are long stretches of instrumental music where there's no singing, but we're not going to count those. For example, you have pieces like in 2112, the overture, most of it is an instrumental, and even the grand finale is mostly an instrumental as well, but we're not going to include that because that's part of a suite. That's really part of a song, so that doesn't count. And we have other stretches during Hemispheres. There's some stretches where there's instruments and not singing, and also another example, the camera eye. There are other examples where there's just stretches of instrumental music where there is no singing. And we're also not going to include any of the solo pieces that are throughout Rush's music history. For example, we're not going to include Didax and Narpets from The Fountain of Lamneth, where that's really a drum solo. All right, I'm listening. Dang. And we're not going to include some of Alex's guitar solos, such as in Snakes and Arrows. He did a little guitar solo on that album, so that's not going to count as well. These are instrumentals where it's the whole band, and the purpose of the song is that it's instrumental and there is no singing in it. So how many instrumentals have Rush done throughout the years? Well, they've done 7, and here's a snippet of each one in chronological order. So they've done all these instrumentals, and I thought, what's the best instrumental that they've ever done? What is the not so good? Or, I mean, they're all good. They're all really good. But what's the worst one? Is it possible to rank them from worst to best? I like lists, so I thought I'd go through all of the instrumentals, listen to them all over, and even live versions of the songs, and come up with what I think is a good list of Rush's instrumentals from worst to best. And I'm going to list them here the way I think they came out. And I'm going to take into consideration how their live versions came out. And did the live versions help them in this list of making them better or moving them up in the list of worst to best? One thing that I did discover is that the best versions of their instrumentals tended to be the version from the tour of that record that they came out and the tour right after. As an example, YYZ, which came out on the Moving Pictures album, that tour, it was a fantastic version. Not only the studio version, but the version they played on tour, and also during the Signals tour, they played it exceptionally well as well. And possibly even the tour after that, Grace Under Pressure, was an incredible version of YYZ. But the best versions of those instrumentals tend to be the live version of the tour of the record they came out on, and maybe a tour or two later. Those tend to be the best. So I took that into consideration as to ranking them from worst to best. And I'm going to go from number 7 all the way to number 1. So here we go with number 7. Number 7 on the list is Limbo. Limbo came out in 1997, 1996, off the Test for Echo record. When I first heard this instrumental, I thought it was a little quirky, a little weird. Right away, I didn't think it was their best one. It's a good instrumental, and when you see it live, you'll see the difficulty that is involved playing that song. There's a lot of harmonics. Alex is really busy in the song. Geddy's really busy. Neil, this was the first record where he played traditional grip throughout the whole record in Test for Echo. And Test for Echo is really a groovy record. It tends to be underrated, but I think it's actually one of their best played records. But Limbo, it tends to meander. Like, it tends to have false endings throughout the whole song. You think it's ending, and then they keep going, and you think it's ending, and it keeps going. So it sounds to me like they just threw a lot of ideas together, and then after they threw them all together, they're like, well, we got to smooth this out a little bit so it sounds kind of like a song. At least that's how I think about it. But I don't think it flows as well as the other instrumentals do. But seeing it live, seeing any of these live, really ups the ante as far as the quality of the song. And when you see them perform these songs, you'll marvel at how the three of these guys pull it off. And it sounds like, as usual, more than 3 guys playing these songs. Limbo is not an exception to this, but I think out of all of the instrumentals that they've produced, this one is not as good as the 6 other ones that come before it. So at number 7 is Limbo. Number 6 on the list is Malignant Narcissism. This song came out in Snakes and Arrows, 2007, and the shortest instrumental in the whole list. And this is a pretty quirky song, really jazzy sounding, and something that the guys threw in at the end of their recordings. They were just messing around, and they discovered that they can do an instrumental, a short piece. It was really a drum and bass exercise, and Alex heard it afterwards and threw his guitar parts in. But this was something that was recorded, well, Neil Peart recorded it on a 4-piece kit, and I believe Geddy Lee used a fretless bass. Basically, it was just something that was very interesting that they threw together, and they just threw it on the record. But live, it's a fantastic performance, and when Neil played it, and that tour on Snakes and Arrows tour, it led into a drum solo, which a great drum solo, as they usually are. And because it's so short, it doesn't really have a chance to have any bad parts in it. It's really, they're jazzing out, and then there's a little lull in the middle of the song, and then it picks right back up, and then it ends. Really short pick me up, and it comes in at number 6 on the best of instrumentals by Rush. Number 6 on the list is Leave That Thing Alone. Leave That Thing Alone came out in 1993 on the Counterparts record, and this is a favorite, I think, of the band because they played it in subsequent tours, a few tours after Counterparts. And this is kind of like a slowly builds up, kind of brooding verse, let's call it. Actually, it doesn't really have verses and choruses and that kind of thing, although there are a couple of the songs that seems like they do. But this one's kind of, to me, it's kind of like a gangsterish type song. It's kind of brooding, and obviously the bass line in this song is sick. And that's something that really came out to the fore in the Time Machine tour, where Geddy Lee just goes off at the end of that song. And it's pretty much when YouTube reactors watch this song live, they realize how great a bass guitarist Geddy Lee is. And this is also another one where it seems like at first listen doesn't sound like Alex Lifeson is that busy, but when you hear it a few times and actually you watch him play it live, Alex is very busy throughout the whole thing. Like, without his participation in it, the song is completely different, and it's not the song we know. And Neil, over the years, when he first played the song, recorded it, and toured with it, he played it matched grip, and then there's certain parts after Test for Echo, when he played it in subsequent tours, he's switching to traditional grip and switching back to match grip. So they really played around with the song over the tours. And if you hear it during the Test for Echo tour, Neil is really going off in the middle of the song, doing a bunch of different fills, and he kind of toned it down afterwards. There was room for experimentation in this song, so I think that's why they liked playing it for so many tours. It seems to be a fan favorite, and the guys really enjoyed playing it. So that one is number 6, Leave That Thing Alone. I mean, not number 6. Number 5. Leave That Thing Alone is number 5. Number 4 in best of Rush's instrumentals is Where's My Thing. Where's My Thing came out on 1991 in the Roll the Bones record. And when I first heard this song, I was so happy that they finally came out with an instrumental, because the last instrumental they did before that was YYZ 20 years before. 20 years? No, 10 years. 10 years before on Moving Pictures. So it was like, finally, they come out with an instrumental. And I thought it was great. It was, fast paced, had a really grand kind of like chorus part, kind of like triumphant, it sounded like. And then, we'd get back to a groove, and then it would be like soft, where they're, Neil Peart's riding the ride cymbal, and you got the keyboards going, and then all of a sudden they go off, the three of them. Really great double bass drum part in there as well. And just when I heard it for the first time, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I was fortunate to see Rush on that tour, the Roll the Bones tour. It was the second time I had gone to see them at that point. And wow, that song live really kicked me in, punched me in the face. It was fantastic. And I included a link to in a previous video where I show how great Alex Lifeson's solo is. So great, as a matter of fact, on this song, that is one of my favorites of any of his solos. If you search on YouTube for Where's My Thing Live 1991, not where they did it later in a subsequent tour when they brought it back, but I'm talking about when they did it in 1991. That version of Where's My Thing is actually why it makes it higher up on my list at number 4, because live it's just fantastic. And oddly enough, I was very surprised that they dropped that instrumental. I guess because they did an instrumental on the next tour right away with Leave That Thing Alone and the Counterparts record. They thought, well, let's do this one instead of Where's My Thing. And I was kind of disappointed, because I think Where's My Thing is a better instrumental than Leave That Thing Alone. You see for yourself if you agree with me. Number 4 in Rush's best of instrumentals, Where's My Thing. Number 3, Rush's top instrumentals is The Main Monkey Business. The Main Monkey Business is one of 3 instrumentals on Snakes and Arrows, the 2007 release, although we're not counting Alex's guitar solo, so we're only counting 2. Malignant Narcissism, man, I can't say that. Malignant Narcissism came in at number 6 on our list, but The Main Monkey Business is actually number 3. And this is probably the most complicated one to play of all of them. Yes, I know there's another one lurking still where it might be the most complicated, maybe the most mind draining to play, but The Main Monkey Business is an exceptionally dense instrumental. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of multi-instrumentation by the 3 band members, because you have Alex Lifeson playing both the 12-string acoustic, and he goes to the electric guitar, and he goes back and forth between the two. You have Geddy playing the pedals and the bass guitar, and you have Neil throughout the whole song on his snare, switching the snares on and off to produce the different sounds of the snare drum depending on where in the song he is. And it is so seamless, you don't notice him doing that. But if you watch on the Snakes and Arrows tour, they did play it, I think, in the R40 tour as well, but in the Main Monkey Business tour, they show Neil at different parts, and if you catch it, he is throwing off and throwing back on the snares on his snare drum. And it's just uncanny that right during the song, without missing a beat, he's making that switch. And it's a very complicated part that he's doing, that he's playing he's hitting the electronic triggers while he's hitting the toms as well, going to the snare, which doesn't have the snares on, and then in other parts of the song the snares are back on. And it sounds like it's a really driving song. To me, it sounds like the music to a football team's whole season, where it shows the different hits, the different big plays, and then the triumphant ending where they win the Super Bowl. I always thought that this instrumental could be part of some video or picture montage of a football team's successful run to the Super Bowl. Anyway, it's a very complicated piece. If you watch them played on Snakes and Arrows live, you'll see that it's a sight to behold the way they pull that off. You hear it on the studio record, it's like, wow, this is really complicated. But then when you see them pull it off the way they do it, it's almost like the studio version, and probably even better. So number 3, The Main Monkey Business. Okay, so now we have probably the two favorite instrumentals of all Rush fans. You have YYZ and La Villa Strangiato. So my number two pick for Rush's top instrumentals is YYZ. I think YYZ is a fan favorite. So is the other one. The version that I believe I heard first, actually no, I heard the studio version first from Moving Pictures, and obviously I thought it was really good. And Neil's fills are just incredible, and the bass line is incredible. And then when Alex plays his solo, where kind of sounds Middle Eastern, I was mesmerized. But then when I saw it, or when I heard it live, because it isn't in the video, the live video of Exit Stage Left, but the record at the time, vinyl of Exit Stage Left. That's the first time I heard YYZ live, and of course it includes the drum solo, which is one of Neil's best recorded drum solos. That version of YYZ probably, arguably, is the best version of YYZ ever recorded from Exit Stage Left. It's really different from the studio version. They really amped up the quality of that song when they played it live, and subsequently when they played it live after that. If you look on YouTube for the live version of YYZ during the Signals tour, you'll find some recordings that they don't look that good, but you can see, I mean, they amped it up. They started off really slow, and then they play it really fast, and also the drum solo comes in. And then they play part of it in a medley during the Grace Under Pressure tour, and that is such a tight version of the song. That's, to me, is one of my favorite versions too, from the Grace Under Pressure tour. But they've played this song, I believe, every tour since Moving Pictures. It is such a fan favorite, and obviously we have our Rio de Janeiro, Brazil fans who put lyrics to the song in Russian Rio, which is a great visual and a great auditory experience when you see the fans in Rio singing to YYZ. So should we keep it as an instrumental in this list? Of course we should. Anyway, YYZ is Rush's second best instrumental. And now we come to number one, La Villa Strangiato, Rush's best instrumental. Rush's first instrumental. An exercise in self-indulgence, as they jokingly called it. It's a very complicated piece, especially for the time. This was one of the pieces that the band members really felt very exhausted trying to record it. Actually, the Hemispheres experience for them was very draining physically and mentally. And La Villa Strangiato was no exception. There's like 12 movements in the piece. It's based off of Alex Lifeson's Nightmares, so they say. Yeah, it has all of the elements of Rush's musicianship, all of them. Geddy's fantastic bass, and probably there's a few seconds of that little lick in the middle of the song where it's probably his best bass lick in all of Rush's catalog. And Alex Lifeson, he shines throughout the whole piece. On the original, he starts off with the acoustic guitar, but subsequently he plays the electric guitar in the introduction, and he has great, all different styles of guitar in the song. And Neil, all of the subtlety, all of the aggression, all of the fills, everything that Rush has done from an instrumentation perspective, it's all found in La Villa Strangiato. So if anybody wants to play Rush, or wants to tackle Rush, if you could play La Villa Strangiato, you pretty much can play anything. And again, I look at live versions of the song, and as I mentioned previously, the better versions of the instrumentals, and actually it typically applies to all of their songs, whether it's instrumental or not, but usually the best versions of their songs tend to be the versions they play on the tour. The record that they're touring, and maybe one or two tours after that, are the best versions of the song. So you have La Villa Strangiato, which came out on Hemispheres in 1978, and then they played it again in the Permanent Waves tour, and then the version that's on Exit Stage Left, that might be the best version of all. And there are great versions of that song afterwards. And Alex goofing off in subsequent tours, just talking garbage during the song, but it's hilarious. But really, when they took that song most seriously was in the Exit Stage Left Moving Pictures tour, and it's just sublime. they are so spot on. And it's not only that they're playing their instruments at such a high technical level, but the tempo that they're playing at, it kind of ebbs and flows. It slows down a little bit, it speeds up, and all three of them know exactly when to speed up and when to slow down. They're just on point the whole time. So that night that they recorded that version of La Villa Strangiato, that to me is one of the reasons, at least, or the main reason why on my list of Rush instrumentals, La Villa Strangiato is number one. So there you have it. That's my list of Rush's best instrumentals from best to worst. Here's the list right here, so you can see how I did it, so you can see how I sorted them, how I came up to my conclusions. If you agree that this is the right order of worst to best, why don't you let me know in the comments, or if you think you like one better than the other, or you think, you know, I'm out of my mind, it should be this way, hey, put it all in the comments, let me know. I want to know what you guys think about Rush's instrumentals, and which ones you think are their best ones, which ones you think are the ones that are not so good, and love to hear from you. And if you want to see more videos like this, you want to talk about Rush, why don't you go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you know when I put up new content talking about our favorite band. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video.